Good evening. Welcome to Living Arts. I'm your host, Jackie Suarez. Thank you for tuning in. Tonight we have a really nice show. We have Mr. Joey Berkley. He's a saxophone player, composer, educator, works at Fox Lane in Bedford. Joey, thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jackie.
Absolutely. We met not too long ago. I have to mention Skin Against Metal.
Mm-hmm.
They were having a fundraiser for Talking Arts Foundation.
Right.
And that would be Maurice and Nanette.
Right.
And you played with them.
I did. I had a great time. It wasn't the first time we played together, but Maurice asked me a while ago if I'd be interested in collaborating with them, and it was cool. It's a different style of music that I don't normally play, but I love that challenge, and they're all great musicians, so it's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, I was fortunate enough to kind of nail you down to bring you to the show, so I'm glad that you're here, so thanks.
Thank you.
You're a Canadian.
Yes, I am.
So tell me a little bit about your migration over here to New York and your music career.
I moved to New York City back in '79. I had just graduated from college.
Did you study music in college?
Yeah, I went to Humber College and went there and did a performance thing there. I got my diploma. And then I immediately that fall moved to New York. And I continued to study in New York with several great musicians. The main one being Eddie Daniels, who I'm still in contact with now, happily. After like 30 years later, I looked him up and we're connected again.
Wow.
He's like one of my heroes. So, but anyways, yeah, I moved here in '79 and hit the streets and, sitting in and doing the typical sort of jazz musician hang in New York. But that's why I chose to leave Toronto and come here.
Okay, do they have a jazz scene per se or something that...
In Toronto?
Yes.
Oh yeah, they have a great scene there. It's different than the New York thing, but a lot of very talented musicians, and but in New York, what your concept of New York is, it's actually pretty true, at least for musicians. It's a place where you have to sort of struggle, and only the strong survive, kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. What was kind of your aspiration as when you came to New York? What was the plan that you had in your mind, or what goals did you have?
Just get better, just be a better musician, and hopefully try to make a living doing it eventually. But that wasn't my first goal. My first goal was to, just surround myself with a lot of great musicians, and it's very competitive. And, it's one of those things where you can be really a very good player, but then it's sort of like there's so many other great players. Being good is not good enough. You got to have something else, that you got to sort of reach down for. And that was what I was hoping to find in New York, and I think I did. So.
Okay, so you had the one mentor that you were working with.
Yeah.
Who were some of the other artists that were around at that time?
That I would
play with. Yeah.
Oh, play with. Well, at the time when I first moved here to New York, I was 19, so almost 20. So I was like just many other young musicians that are graduating from college, and we're all just sort of hitting the clubs and sitting in, and at first I wasn't really playing with anyone. I was just playing with a lot of my peers and trying to develop that way. But ultimately I started to gravitate towards certain sort of scenes. New York's made up of many musical scenes. There's different types of players out there, and I kind of gravitated towards sort of the mainstream jazz world as opposed to the more pop R&B type of thing.
Gotcha.
So and I just hung out with all my heroes and got a chance to meet a lot of them and play with some of them, and learned a lot.
It must have been awesome. I guess at that point you formed the Joey Berkley Quartet.
I did, yes.
So who were the musicians that were involved with that?
That very first record was entitled Made in New York City, and it was with a friend of mine, a bass player named Joris Tepe, who produced it, and then had a great drummer, Carl Allen, playing drums, and Daryl Grant, the piano player. These were all people called in to do this particular recording, and it was a great experience. My idea of that particular record was the title references the idea that being in New York has sort of made who I am today, kind of thing. So that's why I entitled it "Made in New York City." It's sort of referring to myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you write or compose all the music on the CD?
Most of it, yeah. There was one song, a standard. I actually have it right here. If I may look, which one was it now? Oh, I'm old-fashioned, right. I did a standard. So Joris Tepe actually did the arrangement on that, and everything else I wrote. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you changed the musicians that are part of the quartet over time.
Yeah.
Because you still have the Joey Berkley Quartet.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So is that always changing?
I have like a core of musicians that I work with, you know, but sometimes everyone may have another gig they have to do and they can't do it. But there's like a handful of musicians that tend to, you know, play with me a lot. And, you know, I'm actually very grateful to have so many talented players that are sort of willing to, you know, that want to play with me, you know, and it's not about the money, because a lot of these gigs are not really top dollar, you know, it's more about the playing than anything else. And I've always been very fortunate with my quartet and also with the other band that I'm involved with, Funkasaurus Rex.
Right.
It's made up of like the top New York players, and it's all about just the playing and, you know, playing some challenging music. And, you know, if we make some money at the end of the night, then that's like a bonus.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah, so now actually you have, besides Funkasaurus Rex, you have 4 good reeds.
Right.
So basically now all of these 3 bands are playing slightly different music.
Right.
And then you also have formed this LLC called Mouthpiece Music.
Right.
So I guess what was your thought, I guess, as you have these different styles of music?
Well, I like to sort of have challenges in different areas. You know, my quartet is like you know, where I'm the only sort of main voice along with the rhythm section. Funkasaurus is, you know, made up of 5 horns and a full rhythm section, and it's much more of an R&B type band. And 4 Good Reeds, we haven't played in a while, but we've done some things in the past that I'm very proud of, and that's just a saxophone quartet, just 4 saxophones playing, you know, much more sort of intimate type of jazz and classical music. So I enjoy the challenge that each one of those provides, you know.
Okay, and so then again, these are musicians that are coming in and out of the group, depending on their availability.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll take the Joey Berkley Quartet. You said that you're working on currently a CD now.
Yes, and we've that particular part of my you know, output, so to speak, is you know, I have the Made in New York CD, and the next one was another CD recording called More and 4. And now I'm actually in the process of doing some more recordings with that group, and I'm actually going to probably just be doing it like a song at a time kind of thing. You know, I'd rather do it that way rather than just do a complete record. I'm enjoying it doing it that way. A lot more flexibility.
Absolutely. You know, now, do you have any performances or something that you're going to be doing anytime in the near future?
Right now, with the quartet, I do have another date coming up shortly. We just played at this place in Nyack last Sunday, this new jazz club called The Spot at Casa, because there's a place right on the strip there called Casa del Sol, I believe.
Oh, okay.
And they now have a jazz club as part of it, and we just started that. And we're back there again on January 20th, I believe. It's a Sunday.
January 20th. Okay, so how did that work out for you?
Oh, it was great. I love it. You know, it was. It's a very nice place. This gentleman named Daryl Jones has gone to a lot of trouble to create a new scene, which is always hard to do because it's always a sort of a fighting proposition regarding money and, you know, trying to keep it going, because jazz doesn't necessarily, you know, represent a lot of money in the music industry. So
right. Well, there's a lot of things. I mean, people do, I guess, for I don't want to talk about myself, but, you know,
please do.
We're not. I'm not making any money from doing what I'm doing.
Right.
But, you know, it's so enriching in so many other ways.
Right.
And, you know, I'm really grateful to the people that are working with me, too, because, you know, we're all volunteering our time.
Yeah. No,
Yes.
I think that's, you know, this is the living arts. So that's, if you don't do it, it dies. So it's not
Right,
about the
exactly.
money. You got to keep it alive by doing, you know, and it's not about the money, you know.
No, absolutely. So I know that you have a lot of students, and I just want to talk a little bit about, you know, you're working at Fox Lane and being a teacher there. How long have you been doing that?
Over 10, like 11, 12 years, something like that. You know, it's been great. You know, I've enjoyed it a lot.
So how did they initially bring you into the fold there?
Well, initially my son went there,
Okay.
and he graduated from there a long time ago. But and they knew that I was his father. Me was a musician, so they had me come in a couple of times and just work with the kids a little bit.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know. I guess they were so mesmerized by. No, I'm kidding. But I guess I did a good job, and they liked what I did, and they asked me if I would be, consider being like a, like a musician coming into the classroom kind of thing, an artist in residence, so to speak. And that's what I've been doing for like over 10, 12 years now, and I run the high school jazz band.
Okay.
And work with one of the middle school bands. And I'm very proud of how we've sort of connected jazz through all of the stages of the school district, from elementary to middle to high school. We're trying to create a continuum of jazz all the way through it, so that once they've graduated from high school, they've had a good learning experience being exposed to this music.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I wonder how important is it at this, stage in your career to impart your expertise and your knowledge onto someone else as a way of kind of keeping jazz alive and keeping the art form alive?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, in fact, I don't even differentiate between playing and teaching. To me, it's all the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, when I teach, I'm not really looking at myself as a teacher and, you're the student kind of thing. It's like we're both musicians. I've been doing it a lot longer. But I look at us as both being on the same path. You're perhaps not going to choose to make it a career, but when I'm teaching, I'm not really acting in any way other than just we're two saxophone players, hanging out, and I'm going to show you what I know. And I learn a lot from my students too. I do a lot of playing with my students. I'm a big believer in demonstrating, but also encouraging by playing as well. So I don't just sit there, and I like to compete with them too. Once they're old enough, it's great. I love to get that kind of sort of competitive edge going between us too. It's great.
Well, that's awesome. As I take a look at the various, groups that you formed, I know that they have very kind of specific genres that they're, you said that the Joey Berkley Quartet is more classical. And the Funkasaurus Rex obviously is more of like a jazz fusion. So tell me a little bit about Funkasaurus Rex.
Funkasaurus Rex is, I created that band about 7 years ago. Greed and profit lies, a sin its pride. Cannot change the faith that fills the sky. A lot of what was passing is sort of R&B, funk kind of stuff. Contemporary stuff was pretty lame, in my own personal opinion. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who disagree with that. But I was sort of growing up listening to, Slide, Family Stone, just all that great, and all the fusion stuff, Billy Cobham, the old Herbie Hancock stuff. And I wasn't hearing any of that going around at that particular point. I'm sure there were some groups, but I wanted to create a band that sort of referenced back to an older time, hence the idea of dinosaurs, because I started to feel like a dinosaur kind of when I would go up to some younger musicians and talk about, certain groups and how could you not know who these people are, and yet you want to be more of a contemporary musician. You have to know you have to understand the history of the music and the roots of where it all came from. And there's a lot of people playing fusion that did not have that, broader understanding of music, and you could tell by their playing. It was very sort of, had one level to it. And, classic fusion R&B stuff is performed by great musicians. I mean, Herbie Hancock is a legendary genius musician, period, but he had different eras. Sometimes, after the Miles era and then going into his own particular original stuff, he did some great sort of funky, types of what I guess we would call fusion music that you know, has a lot of levels of sophistication to it, you know. So that's what Funkasaurus is kind of referencing, is that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I wondered about that. I was like, well...
Well, Funkasaurus has in, you know, it seems like it's an extinct art form, you know, in its purest sense. You know, what passes for that today, you know, and again, is, in my opinion, is not really that interesting to listen to, so.
So now this is a 9-piece band.
Yeah, it's 5 horns and 4 in the rhythm section. We have a new release that we did, well, it's almost a year now. The guitar player in the band, John Tropez, who's, you know, his name alone speaks for a lot of the history of this music. He and I produced an EP, which is actually has vocalists on it. So that was like a change for us to add some singers to the band. So that's why it's called I Hear Voices, is the name of the CD. And there's 2 songs. There's only 2 songs on it, but they're kind of long and go off into some different directions, you know.
Okay. So, you know, probably people have asked you this before. I guess of all 3 of the groups that you formed, which would you say is closest to your heart? Or
I guess the Quartet. Just because it really offers me the opportunity to just, you know, sort of express what I feel as a musician without any other kind of issues to sort of have to compete with or modify. But even my quartet now has really evolved over the past couple of years. The first CD made in New York City, and then More and 4, the second one. There's been an evolution musically to now. The music is definitely more sort of R&B influenced as well. Because I find that just speaks to me a little bit more than straight ahead sort of, you know, traditional jazz, you know, sort of the modern hardcore jazz stylings, you know. I mean, there's certain players types of playing that I'm sort of associated with, people that hear me play. But I've sort of evolved my writing into a much more sort of like a contemporary fusion of straight ahead jazz, but with more of an R&B type of influence. I mean, my heroes growing up as a saxophone player were, you know, there's so many great saxophone players, but, you know, certain people like John Coltrane, you know, Miles and all his music, and Monk, you know, that's where my heart kind of embraced the music. So I kind of maintain that, but I think it's now evolved into a more contemporary sound.
Who first introduced you to all the jazz greats?
Well, when I grew up, my mother was a singer, so I grew up in that type of a household with a singer, which was a great experience for me. But listening to her sing and the music that she would listen to sort of inspired me to want to learn more about it. And I just, even at the early age of just starting high school, I felt that the saxophone was definitely an opportunity for me to sort of express my, it was like a need, it's kind of gets into that whole thing about why do you decide to become a professional musician.
It's the money.
It's the money, yeah. I wasn't the smartest kid in the world, obviously. But no, it's not the money. It's about, the best answer is, I heard this great saxophone player, Phil Woods. He was asked that question on a radio program once. Why be a musician? And he said, well, if it's because you love to play and you just love to do it, that's not a reason to become a musician, because you should, become a lawyer and then enjoy music for what it is as a hobby. To be a musician, it's more about the need to be a musician. It's sort of like you have to do it. It's like a religious calling.
Right.
Because it's about the only thing that can sort of justify a lot of the things you're going to have to put up with,
Right.
which you don't understand in going to music school. The hardships of being a musician are just so deep that the only way you can actually persevere with it is because it's something you have to do. It's like breathing.
Right.
And that's probably the best answer about why to become a musician.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, it sounds it is very heavy in a way, but it's the truth, It's
Right, because you're going to practice and you're going to toil and you're going to, wait for opportunities to play without ever really maybe getting the type of recognition that you want.
Absolutely.
Although maybe the recognition necessarily is not, so much a part of it, but
right.
I think somewhere in the back of all artists' minds, there's this thing where, one of these days, I'm going to be, I'll arrive,
Right, and then, yeah, and you're still, I'm still waiting to arrive sort of thing. Well, it's, maybe you have to sort of change your definition of what arriving means, I guess.
Right, exactly. And I think, well, we all come to, to grips with that as time passes.
Yeah,
exactly. So then that brings me to the 4 good reads. Now I was wondering, now you mentioned read, and I say this, is this, tell us how first you came up with that name, because all these names always seem so interesting to me.
Right. 4 good reeds. Well, the reed itself has a significance, obviously, with the saxophone, and 4 referring to the fact that it's a quartet, and it's sort of referencing the 4 musicians that are in the band. They're great saxophone players. So, and saying 4 great reeds would seem like a little like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's more about 4 good reeds, and that would be us.
So what's the crux of the group? What was the point of putting this particular group together?
Just for the challenge of playing saxophone quartet music, which is completely different than playing with the quartet like that, like my jazz quartet or Funkasaurus, where you have a rhythm section with you. This is all about just 4 saxophones playing together. So that's a challenge, because we're dealing with still the art form of jazz, but now the sense of time and everything is much more, within us, as opposed to externally with a drummer, let's say, for instance. So we have to sort of create our own sense of groove just amongst ourselves. Speaking of Fox Lane, we went and did a residency there several years ago. We called it a saxophone summit, and we went in and worked with all the saxophone players in the entire district. From elementary, middle, and high school, and we worked with them, did a bunch of workshops, and then we ended with a concert that night, and it was great. It was a lot of fun. Enjoyed it. Oh yeah.
So what do you have in store over the next year? Let's say we have New Year coming up. What do you have in store musically?
I don't know. I mean, I want to keep writing. I do a lot of writing now. I've really evolved into doing a lot of composing and arranging. So I plan on doing a lot more of that. I have a series of educational videos that I'm planning to produce in the next month. Mouthpiece Music, my publishing business company, is going into partnership with another company, ENC Media, with this gentleman, Stu Staley, and we're going to produce a bunch of these educational jazz improv sort of downloads that people will be able to download because I have one DVD out now called All Things Saxaphone, and that's been out for about 4 or 5 years now. So this will be like a follow-up to that. So I'm looking forward to doing that.
That's terrific. Well,
Yeah.
you know, unfortunately, we've run out of time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's been great having you on,
Oh,
and I
thank
really
you.
appreciate you making your way over here. You're
Mm-hmm.
a Yonkers native,
Yes.
so we have that in common. What's the website that people can get some more information about what you're doing and how
Sure.
to, you know, purchase your CDs and whatnot?
My website, joeyberkley.com.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I should have.
No, it's
How many
okay.
times have I said that? So yeah, joeyberkley.com. They can go there, and there's connections to all the things I'm doing, my itinerary and products that are for sale and all that stuff.
Well, awesome. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
And to the Living Arts community, thank you for tuning in. We'd like you to visit our Facebook page, Living Arts in Westchester. Definitely visit our website. And thank you for sticking with us and continuing to tune in. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.